Okay, we'll get started. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Today, our speaker is Ms. Breanna Nelson. As a part of a project examining the effects of COVID-19 restrictions on road-related injuries in BC, researchers searched for publicly available road traffic data and found numerous publicly available data sources. The largest data source is the BC Traffic Data Program, which includes over 900 sites throughout the province of BC and reports on volume, speed, and length data. Additional data sources include the traffic volumes from the City of Vancouver and the City of Surrey. In the context of COVID-19, researchers found a stark decrease in road traffic volumes and a slight increase in vehicle speed at the onset of the pandemic compared to the pre-pandemic period. Overall, this work demonstrated the vast amounts of publicly available road traffic data sources across BC. This data may be valuable for future road safety research, as it can be used as a denominator, offset variable, or covariate in road-related injury research. These data are limited in the vehicle speed data are only available from the BC Traffic Data Program, which largely consists of highways and intermunicipal roadways. Breanna is a PhD candidate at UBC and a graduate research assistant with the BC Injury Research and Prevention Unit, or BCRPU. She has spent the last 3 years working on road safety research projects, and a large portion of that work has involved finding road traffic data across British Columbia. For those joining us online, if you have any questions during the presentation, please enter them into the chat box at the bottom of your screen. After the presentation, you may unmute your audio line to ask questions, or we will monitor the chat box for questions or any comments you may have. We're now ready for the presentation. Breanna, whenever you're ready.
Thank you for the introduction, Anita. So I would just like to start with a land acknowledgement, and that this work was completed where I work, live, and play, which is on the traditional and unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. And I would also like to acknowledge that the data that I will present today comes from across many regions and many different traditional and unceded territories covering all of British Columbia. So as Anita mentioned in the introduction, this work was started because of a research project that was looking at how injuries changed from a pre-pandemic period and due to the COVID-19 pandemic restrictions. And when we were looking specifically at the road-related injuries, we wanted to put into context how road use may have changed. And so I started looking for some of the publicly available road traffic data in British Columbia. We found three main sources, the first being the BC Traffic Data Program, which is operated by the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure and monitors traffic at various locations throughout British Columbia. There's over 900 sites that have been collecting data from 2004 till the present day, and over 3,200 historic sites that collected data from 1994 to 2003. This includes both temporary sites and permanent sites, where the temporary sites are where the traffic cameras are set up for a couple of days and collecting data there, but then removed, whereas the permanent sites have the traffic cameras permanently installed and collect a little bit more data, including the vehicle length, vehicle speed, and traffic volume. I will just show this, what this looks like a little bit very briefly. So that link brings you to this page where we can see all of the different sites. And to take a look, this is where you would go if you clicked on one of the temporary sites, and you can get, again, the temporary data, which looks a little something like this, where we only have 2 days worth of data. Whereas on some of our permanent sites, if we look here, there's a lot more data and disaggregated by different time periods as well. And just as some examples, this is a monthly vehicle length summary that you could get, or the monthly speed distribution with the different speed ranges, as well as some summary variables and a volume distribution. So similar to what I just showed, but the different sites have different data available, and they're available in different timeframes. So speed can be reported monthly or annually, and traffic volume can be reported daily, monthly, or annually. And if you were to click on a site in order to get the data. You go to that site's page, you enter the type of data you want, the year, the month, the day, if applicable, and then you would export the data in the format that you would like it. Click start over and do that again. So if you were looking at getting a lot of sites or over a very long time period, just extracting this data and then cleaning it can take quite a bit of time. Since we were specifically interested in the permanent traffic cameras that were available in British Columbia, we found an additional 2 sites, which were the City of Vancouver with 31 locations that have had the traffic volume counter since 2018. And so this is their map that they provide. These purple lines are where the counters are, so mostly on the bridges and at the boundary. And if you were to click on one, you can download an Excel sheet with the traffic volume since the camera has been available. And similarly, the City of Surrey has over 300 sites that have had the permanent traffic volume counter since 2016. Following this link would bring you to this page, and clicking on this will download a very large file that has the traffic counts in 15-minute intervals for every day since that counter has been available at every location and split by direction and lane. So this file contains a significant amount of data that takes quite a bit of cleaning to be in a usable form. And although it wasn't of our primary interest, while we were looking for more permanent traffic counter data, we also found some other available resources that just didn't fit into what we needed, such as the temporary traffic counters with publicly available data from Coquitlam and Victoria. As well, Richmond, Mission, and White Rock reported traffic counter data, reported that they had traffic counters, but it was not clear how to access this data. And then Kelowna and Colwood have publicly available cycling and pedestrian data available on some of their trails. So I will briefly talk about what we did with this data, just as an example of how it can be used. So again, as I mentioned, we wanted to assess the changes in road-related injuries at the onset of the pandemic. And so I specifically was looking at the changes in road use at the onset of the pandemic. So we used 83 of the BC Traffic Data Program sites that had permanent volume and speed data throughout our study period, which was from 2015 till March of 2022. And then we also used all of the City of Surrey and City of Vancouver sites from the entire time range that they had data available. And we defined April 1st, 2020 as the onset of the pandemic. And we wanted to look at how the traffic speed and volume changed. So just a quick overview. For the traffic volume, we saw unexpectedly a transient decrease in traffic volume at the onset of the pandemic compared to the pre-pandemic times. So looking at the bottom left, we can see that this dashed red line on all 3 of these graphs marks April 1st, 2020, and we see a stark decrease in traffic volume at that time point. Particularly for the BC Traffic Data Program, this is seen more in the Fraser Health Authority and the Vancouver Coastal Health Authority. But we see the same trend in the City of Vancouver, and the City of Surrey as well. For vehicle speed, we overall found no change in the median speed at the onset of the pandemic compared to the pre-pandemic period, which is shown in this graph on the left, with the sites split by their posted speed limit. We also wanted to look at how if there was an increase in the number of vehicles that were speeding. So we define this as going more than 15 kilometers per hour over the posted speed limit. And we did find an increase in speeding, particularly in the 60, 70, and 100 kilometer per hour zones, which are some of these lines down here. And although it was not related to our question of interest, we also noted that there was a pretty high rate of speeding in our 50 kilometer per hour speed zones, throughout our entire study period. And the main reason that we wanted to present this is that we felt that it could be a useful resource for other road safety researchers. So I just presented a descriptive overview of the data that we found, but that data was used as an offset variable in analyses looking at the changes in road-related injuries from the pre-pandemic to the pandemic periods. And we particularly think that the volume data could be used as an estimate for a denominator of the number of vehicles that are on the road, which has historically been difficult to estimate in this type of research. We also, as we used it, think that the data could be used as an offset variable or a covariate in many different analyses examining road-related injuries, and can also be used in other ways, such as to assess the effects of changes to the road or to policies, and see how that affects road use, and looking at regions, perhaps if there are regions that are showing a lot more injuries or collisions, can look at the road use there and how it may differ from other regions. So overall, there is a lot of publicly available road traffic data in British Columbia, and we think that this can be a very valuable resource in road safety research. It is mainly limited in that the speed data is only available for the BC Traffic Data Program, which are provincially controlled roads, which tend to be highways, bridges, and other intermunicipality roads. And so the speed data may not be as generalizable to road use within municipalities. The speed data may also be skewed based on how the cameras collect the data. If there is high volume and slow moving traffic, it may not it may not collect as well during those time periods. So we may have a skew to faster speeds than maybe what is actually experienced over the entire time period. And as with anything, sometimes the traffic equipment malfunctions and we'll have missing data for time periods until the camera can be fixed. And I'd like to acknowledge that this was part of a CIHR funded project, and I would like to thank all of the BCIRPU members and members of the CIHR project teams for their support and feedback. And I will open the floor to any questions.
Breanna, maybe I'll read the questions. I'm not sure if you can see the Zoom questions, but our first question is, what is the source of the speed data?
The speed data is collected from the traffic cameras through the BC Traffic Data Program. I believe it is the same cameras that collect the speed and volume.
And the second question, will we define injuries in this project? Does it include fatalities?
That is a better question for other members of this project team, but I believe we included any hospitalized injuries. But if it was a fatality at the site of the injury, I'm not sure that it would have made it into our counts.
Dr. Peck, we can confirm with our team members and we can get back to you offline on that one. The next question, have you examined what quality would you ascribe to Google's collected traffic data available via API using services like Outscraper?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Have you examined, and if so, what quality would you ascribe to Google's collected traffic data available via API using services like Outscraper? Probably not I'm not sure that it's an area that we've touched upon.
No, we haven't looked into that yet.
And then just a comment, you can go onto municipal police sites and get their temporary speed reader data. And this individual is using it for an ongoing project. Thank you for your feedback.
Thank you.
Question from Dr. Yao. Do you know how the province or municipalities are currently using this data?
No, I am not sure. There may be some people from those regions who could maybe speak to that. I'm not sure exactly what it is used for, but they do make it available to anybody else who wants to examine it as well.
Breanna, we just have a question about the pedestrian and cyclist data. Which municipalities had that data?
That
And
was,
we'll just quickly flip back to the
yes, that was
slide.
Kelowna and Colwood from what I found. Um, this may not be the most comprehensive list, as someone has already mentioned, the police departments may have more data as well. This was more so, I mainly looked through municipality websites, so.
Comment from Tobin. I'd be interested in discussing whether or how camera-based count systems could be used to generate data by type of road users, so cyclists and pedestrians.
As in if they are being counted in this data.
I think so.
That would be interesting. At one point, we did look for the BC Traffic Data Program. We looked at how many of those regions may have had cycling, a proportion of cyclists or pedestrians on it. As I mentioned, a lot of them are highways, so the counts would mostly just be traffic volumes, but particularly for the municipal ones, that would be interesting to look at.
Tobin, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. Breanna, first of all, thank you for a really interesting overview of the data systems. Really appreciate that. I guess I just want to clarify, it might be simpler to clarify my question around the camera systems. I was thinking specifically about potential for using like machine learning, such as what Tarek Sayed's work at UBC around identifying types of road users, and then using the video data to generate counts. I'm thinking for municipal programs that use video data, that might be a way to get at the really, persistent problem of getting denominator data for users on the roadways other than motor vehicles.
Mhm.
This might be a real opportunity to crack that nut. Also, I was interested, you were mentioning the BC Traffic Data Program, and they're using cameras now. I was under the impression they were mostly like in induction loops and piezoelectric strips and those sorts of things. So
I think
that might
most,
be an opportunity on highways as well.
yeah, I think most of the permanent sites now are cameras, but when they set up those temporary sites, they may just be those strips.
Okay. We have another question. Next question. One of the sites includes bicycles. Is it possible to estimate the denominator for bicycle injury and fatalities? This has always been an issue in deciding the rate of bicycle injuries and fatalities.
I think that would be difficult. I did look into, how many of these sites had bike lanes, particularly undivided bike lanes. So if you wanted to only look into those sites to try and get an estimation, but I'm not sure if you could get a rate since cycling also happens on a lot of roadways that don't have these uh, cameras. Although it would be an interesting question to look into.
A few questions about if the slide deck and the links will be shared. Yes, I will send it out to everyone who's registered. So yes, you will receive a copy of the recording as well as the slide deck. Thank you. I see that we have some folks working for the cities. So thank you for those comments. Breanna, maybe a question from our team. I know you looked at this road safety data specifically for the COVID injury projects. Are there any future plans to maybe have other road safety research projects or other ways of using this data?
I think there was some people within our team who may have been interested in having it as a resource to maybe look back on for other projects, but I don't know of any specific projects that plan to use it in the near future that I have heard of yet.
We have a question about the provincial data set, whether that includes counts, speeds of cyclists and pedestrians. I guess that's the BC speed data program that they're referring to.
Yeah, the BC traffic data program. I will say most of these sites are not in regions that there would be pedestrians or cyclists, since it is mostly highways. I did go through and look at each of the included sites, and only a small subset had, crosswalks nearby or sidewalks or bike lanes. I think that would be a site by site question, depending on how uh, the cameras or the strips are set up in terms of the roadways. For example, on the bridges where it's a divided lane, I'm not sure that the camera would be able to capture the cycling lane and the sidewalk, whereas if it's more of an undivided lane, I believe they should be captured as well.
So could I just try to clarify that some more? So there are lots of people who cycle on provincial highways where there are no crosswalks and no bike lanes. And so is that data even collected or not at all? Like, I'm assuming if it's collected, even at some sites, that shows up in an aggregate somewhere.
Yes, I think it will be collected. I think in terms of one of the limitations of at least the speed data, I don't think it collects below a certain speed. So it may collect some cyclists depending on how fast they're able to cycle, but a pedestrian may not be collected in terms of how fast they are going, just since they wouldn't hit the minimum speed in order to be registered. However, in terms of the volume counts, I believe that they would be included in these aggregates, yes.
So does that mean they're just being counted as a vehicle?
I believe so, yes. I believe particularly cyclists may be counted as vehicles. Pedestrians, I am less sure on.
Okay, thank you.
Next question, have you had success contacting city transportation departments and getting traffic volume data?
We did have some help from the City of Vancouver in terms of understanding their data that they had available. For the I believe we contacted some of these other municipalities that may have had the traffic counters, but it wasn't clear how to access it. And I don't believe we had much luck in hearing back from them.
Not to put anyone on the spot, but I am aware we have some We have some folks from several municipalities on the call. So if anyone has some perhaps advice they can, or if they're aware of any ways to obtain that data, then please feel free to share with us. We have a comment. I looked at this data many years ago, but I believe vehicle length is also captured by provincial count stations. I'd imagine that pedestrians and cyclists would be counted separately, if at all, due to their length. A very good point, actually.
Yes, that is true. I didn't look much into the vehicle length at all for this project.
Next question. Do you know of any work being done to have a provincial traffic index so we can monitor congestion?
I do not know specifically about that. I know that some of the municipalities have traffic cameras set up in a way so that you can monitor congestion yourself if you want to look at that. If you want to go online and check how bad the roads look before you get out there, but I don't know if that is being done provincially or in a standardized manner.
Okay, Breanna, maybe if you want to switch quickly to the contact slide, if you have a contact slide. If not, if you have any questions after this webinar, you can also, email the BC Injury. That's our unit. If we have the answer to your question, we'll answer. If we don't, we'll loop you in with, if we know of a contact that we can connect you with, we'll be sure to loop you in. Okay, if we don't have any more questions, then we'll end the webinar here. And thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you, everyone.